This is Talk to Seattle, and I'm your host, Jason Rigden. On this episode, we have Sergio Garcia, who's running for Seattle City Council in the 6th District. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, Jason. How about yourself?
Doing great. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself, maybe your background and experience?
Yeah, background experience. I'm a first-generation American, son of a housemaid and a carpenter. I'm originally from Miami, Florida. I grew up there. Pretty humble life, one-bedroom apartment with my parents and the older sister. Attended public schools. A few years after high school, I became a police officer. I ended up working in South Florida for nearly 13 years. My experience as a police officer ranged from being on the SWAT team to doing outreach and community policing. In my mid-20s, I wanted a little bit more out of life, so I started traveling. I'd done a ton of traveling all over the country, all over the world. A few years after that, I began flirting with the idea of possibly moving out of Miami. So my girlfriend, who is now my wife at the time, was finishing law school in Brazil. And after she was done, we made the decision to move to Seattle. And I had been to Seattle a few times prior to that, and I fell in love with the city. We definitely envisioned ourselves raising a family here and potentially one day enjoying a retirement here. Then once I got out here, I began working for SPD, and I got assigned to the Ballard Fremont area, and that is part of District 6. And my time there, I was able to interact with people, all sorts of different people, from people who live in million-dollar homes to our less fortunate neighbors who are sleeping on our streets. I built a pretty good understanding and of what the issues were. I was able to build a sense of community and friendship with everybody, business owners, their employees, residents. And then, now I'm running for city council.
And so then what made you decide to run for city council?
Well, like I mentioned, I'd love to raise a family here. I'd love for them to, attend public schools, enjoy the parks, for us to enjoy the natural beauty in the region. I really want to live here forever. I feel that with public safety and homelessness crisis being top issues in the city right now, I've developed a true understanding of these complex issues. I've got a unique perspective on what's going on our streets. I've got experience that cannot be obtained from working in an office or reading a book or from obtaining a degree in political science. I'm an average, authentic guy who wants to start addressing some of these issues, so people could, so kids could start enjoying our parks, so our police officers and in our community build a bridge of understanding and we get along. I want us to be an inclusive city, continue to be an inclusive city. I want us to help, truly help the homeless people. And I want to give this district a voice back, right? I want people to go back to enjoying their lives and enjoying this beautiful city.
And could you tell me a little bit about your district?
My district. So my district is the best district in the city. I think every candidate would say that about their district. It's where old Ballard meets new Ballard. It's Fremont, the center of the universe. It's got development and it has a lot of development going on. It still has a lot of charming old neighborhoods, a ton of restaurants for our foodies. It's full of history and strong community ties. We've got the only zoo in the city. We got the Ballard Locks. We got a ton of breweries and the best breweries in Seattle. You could spend your afternoon at the Nordic Museum, or you could go to Sunset Hill and try to spot an orca. People are very have a lot of pride of being up here from Ballard, Fremont, or Green Lake, or just a general area. I would say it's a very unique place. It's growing. It's got a ton to offer, and it feels like we're our own little city, right? I mean, we're so far yet so close. Never want to go down south because all the traffic. It's got a little bit of everything.
And so what do you think are the biggest challenges facing your district?
So the biggest challenges in the district, I think the number one complaint that people would have is that they don't have a voice. I feel people here are being feel that they're not being represented by their elected officials. I would definitely say that the two top concerns of the district as a whole would be public safety and homelessness. With property crime skyrocketing and people, just Battle alone had an increase of 40% of homeless last year. So you constantly see it, right? And people are fed up. People truly want to help. People want to start addressing some of these issues. And I think that they can't even wait a few more months for elections, right? Everybody, you could feel the environment, you could feel the energy. Everybody's getting involved and paying attention to what's going on.
And what do you think are the biggest issues facing the city as a whole?
I think that there are also public safety and homelessness, but as a whole, I think there's a ton of issues. There's transportation, there's housing development, infrastructure. Some of the bridges are a little outdated, so I know that's going on. I think that the city has a ton of issues. It almost feels like we're constantly talking about these issues, and in the meantime, the issues are just getting worse, right? And I think that's been going on for quite some time. Everybody's so caught up on their ideology and opinions and whatnot amongst our elected officials that the city is almost pauses from any progress. And these issues are getting worse, right? I mean, you look at public transportation. That's something that we have to take care of now. If we don't pick up that expensive bill, it's only going to get more expensive down the road, right? So,
how can the city help homeless folks?
Well, I think for starts, it'd be interesting where our money is going and where it's being spent, right? If you make the math, we're spending $1 billion on the issue. That's not including police services, fire services, and some of all the programs that are out there where people are providing aid. If you divide that $1 billion that we're spending on the 12,000 King County count on homeless people last year, it's $83,000 per person. That's also the average income of a Seattleite right now. So I think the first thing we need to do is figure out where this money's going, what we're spending it on, what's working, what's not working. We need to start treating it like a state of emergency, right? And start being proactive on resolving some of these issues. I also have, during my time here as a police officer in the district, I've been able to build relationships, like I said earlier, with everybody. And I also, I build relationships with homeless folks. And, I hear them, their complaints as to why I don't take these services or why I don't go to some of the shelters or housing. And I hear all sorts of things, right? I hear that there's bed bugs. I hear they get assaulted. I hear they have no storage for their stuff, or they have a pet, or they're not allowed to go with their spouse. I've heard people getting infections in the bathrooms. And I get it. These organizations and shelters are trying, but I don't think trying is good enough, right? We have people who are dying on our streets, and we have people who need, and we need to figure it out. We need to create models of what we want, and kind of go off that, right? We need to create some sort of hub also as well. It's difficult for us with traffic, how bad Seattle traffic is right now, to get in our cars and have the luxury to go down south to pick something up and then run another errand up north. And we're stressed out, right? And we have a functional life. So imagine somebody who's up on the street with a drug addiction or a mental illness or a ton of other issues, has to get on public transportation, run around the entire city when it's cold and it's raining to get their services, right? So there should definitely be a hub. Everybody, we should all be working together. Anybody who is contributing into addressing this issue should absolutely be on the same page. So we could all know what we're doing, and we could all know what's working. We could all know what's not working. I think essentially also what we need to do is start plugging some of these holes into people who are falling into homelessness for the first time, and people who are, it's a recurring issue, right? There's a ton of people who end up on the street as well just because they can't pay their rent. We need to get creative. We need to start addressing some of those issues from preventing people from falling into homelessness for the first time, And those folks that we're able to pick up and propel and empower, we need to create a system for long-term assistance, right? I mean, somebody who's have had a drug addiction for decades, and we have to set ourselves for realistic expectations and goals. We can't expect this person to all of a sudden get a job from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. and and just forget about them without any support or long-term connection of services, right? So, a ton of things we need to do.
Another big issue that you've talked about a couple times here now is transportation. What can the city do to help improve our transportation system?
So we need to start spending some money on it. Really, it's what it is. I think I make a joke, and somebody probably listening to this is gonna be like, "Hey, he makes that joke every time," but it is a joke and it isn't. The solution would be building a time machine and going back 30 years and building public transportation, right? The city's growing, and we are locked as far as the land that we have available. So if you look around major cities that are functional around, just alleviating traffic, it's all around, public transportation, effective buses, train system or subway system that is functional, that is spread out through the entire city. We don't have that here, right? And the longer we wait and the longer we procrastinate on making these tough decisions, the more expensive it's going to get. We also have to keep in mind that we're a very inclusive city. So although I'm for, alternative means of transportation, we cannot exclude people who are disabled and could only drive. People who are part of a culture, like my parents. My mother never rode a bicycle growing up. She doesn't know how to ride a bicycle. And, she's almost 70 and she still has to clean houses and offices for a living. So she has all her equipment that she has to carry with her. She's got 2 bad knees and doesn't like the cold. So how do we start providing alternative means and safe alternative means of transportation, right? I know a lot of people don't like riding the bus because they feel unsafe. So, let's start small. How about we start addressing some of the potholes on the street, right? That does alleviate traffic, or start looking at some of the cycles over traffic lights. I see them all the time. I'm stuck. I'm also stuck in traffic for 9 hours a day at work. So, some of these traffic lights, the cycles are less than a minute, and it creates a line backed up all the way, for a long time. So I think we can start doing small things that won't cost the city any money. And we also need to start sitting down and making some of these tough decisions on spending the money on transit, on a light rail system. We need to make it work now. The longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to be.
Another major issue is housing affordability. What can the city do to help improve that?
So, they just passed the MHA in Hala. I think that's a touchy subject up here up north. I think that there's room in the table for both, for development and for preservation of what we have. I live in an affordable house. I'm renting. I would never be able to buy here in Seattle, but it's an affordable house, and it's a really old house. But it's affordable because my landlord has owned it for a very long time. So, development, we need development. Obviously, it's a numbers game. The more people you have moving into a city, the more supply you need, right, for the demand. And let's develop areas like on Aurora. Let's develop, Market Street and 15th Avenue, 17th Avenue, 20th Avenue. We could create development we could create that supply for the demand in areas that are suitable for it, right? And then at the same time, we could, work with landlords. We could work with tenants. We could come up with ideas and policies that preserve some of our affordable housing, right? I mean, when I first moved here and I was looking to rent a place up here, there's this whole, there's a development in affordable housing. And affordable housing for who? Because I couldn't find anything that I was able to afford. So, it's it's one of those where we also have to, we're going to grow, whether, we're in favor of growth or not. We are going to grow. So we have to acknowledge it, and we have to be smart about it, right? And I think smart growth is really what we want out of this. And grow as a city, we have to create a vision of where we want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and get a handle on that, right? And grow in a smart way. And it's if you start doing all those things, and there isn't a one universal key to fix any of these issues, right? There isn't a one key that's going to fix our homeless problem, or it's going to fix our transportation or our housing. But if you start doing some of these changes, then what it creates, it creates a balance between livability and affordability, which are, two different things. But yeah, kind of start chipping away at all the issues here when it comes to housing and development.
So we live in very polarized times. How would you as a city leader work to bring people together?
That's what I do for a living. I show up to your house. Everybody's upset. Everybody's doesn't agree with what's going on. And at times they disagree with each other, and they disagree with me as well. And my job is to find a resolution where we could all meet halfway and move forward. And, my job for nearly 15 years has consisted of that, of showing up in environments that are extremely stressful or, hostile, and people are unhappy and people are upset. Emotions are high, and I have to show up, and somehow I have to entertain these people, put up a show, and make everyone feel better, and truly, help them. And I think finding a middle ground is probably one of the things that I do best. And this is an opportunity where I am able to surround myself with extremely smart and capable individuals, and Seattle's full of those. And I'm able to surround myself with these individuals and work together for days, weeks, months on finding some of these solutions to start addressing some of these problems. So I think it's very applicable for me. If anything, it alleviates some of the stress that I deal with on a daily basis, where I have to make a decision 30 seconds, and you better make the right decision or you're going to be unemployed. So yeah, I think that, it's very important. It's one of the questions that people ask me pretty often is, if you are elected, how do you intend to work with certain people who aren't the easiest to work with? And that's what I do now. So I think I'd be able to do a good job.
And if people want to learn more about your campaign, where should they go?
Yeah, so you could definitely follow us on Facebook. It's Sergio for Seattle. We put up our events there. We have a ton of cool stuff going on. And you could also go to our website, which is sergioforseattle.org. And yeah, those are two places. Or you could even call our campaign line, which is 206-446-8968. 206-446-8968. You could call, text, and I want to hear from everybody. That's what I'm here for.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You've been listening to Talk to Seattle, and I've been host, Jason Rigden. If your favorite candidate for Seattle City Council has not yet appeared on this show, why don't you contact them and tell them to come on Talk to Seattle? If you're a listener of the show, these are non-confrontational interviews. I ask the same questions of everyone, and people get as much time to talk as they want. So please help me out. If there are any candidates that you want to see on this show that have not came on the show yet, please just send them an email encouraging them to come on to Talk to Seattle. Thank you so much for listening.